This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And you are either listening if you're on Blog Talk Radio or watching, hello, YouTube, to the Primetime Podcast here on Most Valuable Podcast. Brandon, we are back after another week of college football that saw some big teams go down. Nebraska goes down, Boise State goes down, Washington should have went down, Navy goes down, Ohio State almost goes down, and Clemson, they should have went down as well.
Yeah, you had some really big teams going down this week. And when I shouldn't say, I guess, really big teams, because the really big teams would have been if Alabama goes down, they didn't play. If Michigan goes down, they didn't. If Clemson did. If Washington, I don't know why you're undefeated. But I think that Baylor going down to Texas, Baylor at number 8, that was a big one. I think West Virginia going down at 10 was a big one. And Baylor went down by 1 point to Texas, a rival there. Oklahoma State blew them out. They blew out West Virginia. It wasn't a tough victory. I guess every victory can be a tough one, especially when you're playing within your own conference. But 17 points, they had it in hand for most of the game. I think the game with Ohio State, they got work to do. That's for sure, and we'll be talking about them.
Northwestern usually plays them tough, and we will talk about them later in the show. Another big one that almost went down, needed a Lamar Action Jackson phenomenal pass, was Louisville.
And a team that I talked about possibly being a second team from the ACC, making it into the top 4 into the playoffs. Doesn't look so after that win over Virginia. And yes, they get the win, but they get the win over Virginia. They've now squeaked by Duke and Virginia, 2 less than stellar teams in the ACC.
Hey, man, Duke, though, they played teams tough. They played Notre Dame tough. You were there for that one.
Yeah. Have you seen how Notre Dame plays this year?
I have definitely seen how Notre Dame plays.
They almost gave away a 20-point lead. Well, they did, but then they were able to squeak out a victory over Miami. But that every win has been an adventure for Notre Dame. Every game has been an adventure. But, so I think that this continues to just show you the parity in college football and how one team 1 week against a good team can look really good. I mean, look at what Louisville did earlier in the season against Florida State. Blew them out.
And then they
struggle against a team like Virginia, a team like Duke. So it's been another wild ride in college football here in 2016.
And before we get into the topics today, I got to do a little bit of house cleaning. Usually Mike Rankin is the best one when it comes to this.
He's the best house cleaner? I'll have to have him over.
I listen to Behind the Pen. I go, man, I really need to pick up my hosting. You guys should check out patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. If you like these video podcasts, you want to see more of them, check it out. Link down below in the description so that we can do more things like this for you. House cleaning over what we're getting into today on the Primetime Podcast. We're going to look at some college football. Jalen Hurd, he's saying that he's going to transfer from Tennessee. We're going to look at how that affects the Volunteers moving forward and Jalen himself. Then we're going to dive in, like Brandon said, to Ohio State, their playoff chances, and what they need to do to maybe get back into that playoff despite their offensive woes. Then this is the first time this season we're going to talk about it. We're going to look into some college basketball and look into some coaches that are going to enter this season, 2016, on the hot seat. But Brandon, we're going to start with college football in Tennessee and Jalen Hurd. The big news coming out of Knoxville today is that the running back is transferring, and we don't know where he's going to go, but he has informed the school, informed Butch Jones, that he's going to be leaving the Volunteers after this season.
Well, I think it comes as, to me and you, I think it comes as a bit of a surprise move right now, especially when he says that he's going to be going over to wherever he transfers to, the school that he goes to. He's going to be looking to play wide receiver or tight end. And Hurd, I think that maybe he's just tired of being on a team that continues to kind of be lackluster, for lack of a better term, when it comes to playing down the stretch. And maybe it has to do with other outside factors. But I don't know. I guess I don't know enough of the story. I don't know enough of the reasoning behind why he's transferring yet, as this is a story that's pretty new. Outside of that, I'm not really exactly sure why he'd be going. I don't know.
Well, I'm looking right here, and this comes from not CBS Sports. This is from the Tennessean.com, and they have a tweet linked from Clay Travis, who has a little bit of a note from Vol 74 about what Jalen's uncle said, and I'm going to read just a little bit of it for you guys. It starts out, Jalen's worked his tail off since he's been here, and it's time for him to move on. He's hurt, been hurt, playing hurt, even had an MRI today, and it's just time to go. Butch made many promises to Jalen, including running the ball or running more for the I formation. Remember what they did in the entire Outback Bowl last year to convince him to stay. Then Butch never ran it one time this year. Jalen knew he didn't fit the system and wanted to go find a better fit last year, but he believed what the staff said to him, so he stayed. And there's a lot more to that. I'm going to leave that down in the description, but just looking at that, it looks like Jalen was like, hey, you know what? I want to leave. Then coming into this season, he's like, you know what? Fine, I'll stay. This team has a lot of hope for it. Behind Joshua Dobbs, maybe we can get into the playoff. We can get college football playoff. And you know that like any kid in college, if you have a chance to play at the highest level and get into the college football playoff, you're going to stay. You're going to stay for that. You're going to say, you know what? I'm going to grind it out just with that chance alone. But you look at Tennessee this year, and I mean, I've been their biggest ragger. I've ragged on them the most this season, to where it's one of those things where they should have lost more games than they did, and they've had close games. The Appalachian State one's the one I keep bringing up because it's the most egregious of the games that they should have lost. But it's just, I feel like with Hurd, it's one of those things where maybe he's thinking to himself, Brandon, maybe I should have left last year. You know what? I made the wrong decision. I should have left last year, and I'm not going to wait till the end of the season. I'm going to tell them I'm leaving now so that I can look for my next school right now.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't really necessarily understand where you said that was his uncle that came out and said that. I don't necessarily understand where that's coming from. 190 rushing attempts in 2014. It went up big time in 2015 to 277 rushing attempts, and he had what was a very good season in 2015. He had over 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns on the ground. He averaged just under 5 yards a carry, so things were going really well for him. And then moving to 2016, he only has had 122 rushing attempts for 400-some yards, but that comes off of the play of the rest of the team. Mm-hmm. You're not going to continue to run the football when you're down by 15, when you're down by 10. And honestly, they needed more firepower from the quarterback, from position, and Josh Dobbs. Mm-hmm. That's just what happens sometimes. But then that calls into question the coaching. And why are we in this position? Why aren't we in the position to run the football more? I think that, those are all types of things, but I don't necessarily think that maybe he wasn't promised what was supposed to come to him. I think that 190 rushing attempts again in 2014, that's good. 277 last season, that's a lot. That's a lot. And 122 right now, he definitely wasn't going to reach his 220 and 277, but he would have most likely, even if he got 20 carries a game, was going to get about 200 carries for the season to finish out this year. I don't know. I don't necessarily know where it's coming from.
And with that part of it, the reason why I didn't harp on that part, I just this is what the uncle said and kind of threw it out there was, of course, when you have a kid transferring, some family members are going to come out and say, oh, he wasn't promised this, he didn't hold up on this, or this, because that's just how they're going to be. It's going to be one of those, what did the other side not do, and kind of make the other side look bad rather than... To me, the way I just see it is, if he had it in his mind that he wanted to leave last year, and last year was a 9-4 season, 5-3 in the SEC. They finished tied for second in the eastern side of the SEC. I bet you it was just one of those things where he's like, hey, you know what? This team's going to be better than it was last year. Let me tough it out. We could make the college football playoff, and that could be huge. Not necessarily for, like, I'm not saying it's like a thing where, oh, it's going to be huge for me and it's going to boost my draft stock. It's just going to be one of those things where, holy shit, I have a chance to play in the college football playoff and possibly have a shot at a national title. That is where I think it happened. And then this year happened, and it was one of those things where after 3 losses, you lose to Texas A&M in double overtime, you lose to Alabama, you get completely blown out by the freshman quarterback and the Crimson Tide. And then the upset against South Carolina, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was just one of those things that said, you know what? It's not going to get better here. It's time to go. And I think that's why this decision happened now from Jalen.
And I don't know if you mentioned this, Ricky, but Jimmy Hyams on Twitter said Hurd has been upset at the way he's been using Tennessee's zone read scheme. Mm-hmm. So, there you have that. And, I guess, you wish the young man the best of luck wherever he goes, and that he has got 1 year of eligibility left. So he can go to a team and make an impact for one final season. And I think that he can make an impact. And again, it's really being in the right scheme, in the right system. How many times have we talked about this? I mean, I think a perfect thing is Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly and Marcus Mariota went together like peanut butter and jelly, because I think that you take a look at that scheme, that system, Marcus Mariota, how he played, his style, that's what it's like. That's what it is. He is meant for a system like that. In college, he certainly was. In college and the NFL, there's a huge gap in between.
You could even say that about like a DeAnthony Thomas.
It was incredible.
You could say that too about like a DeAnthony Thomas, the wide receivers, how they use them, how they use the running backs like Kenyon Barner. That whole Oregon, it's not just the quarterback. It's that whole system just fit Chip Kelly. It fit that team. It fit what he was building. With Tennessee, I don't know what's going on. Like, why can't they put the pieces together? Because, like I said, yeah, they lost these 3 straight, but when you think about it, should have lost to Appalachian State. For about a good first half, they were playing close by Virginia Tech until they pulled it away. They only won by 9 against Ohio. You win by 10 against Florida. I believe Florida had the lead in that one too. And then you win by 3 against Georgia. Every single game has been close. Although that Virginia Tech score does not look it, it was close in the first half. And I think we flipped the question on to kind of get into the second half of this to kind of put the kibosh on it sooner rather than later is what is going to be the Vols' future now? And more importantly, how many more years? I'm going to throw it out there. How many more years does Tennessee go with Butch Jones?
Well, I think that after a while, you eventually have to say, look, where do we want this team going, and who do we want leading this football program? And I think that at the end of the day, the question is, are you beating the people that you need to beat? Not that you should be beating. Mm-hmm. Are you beating the Alabamas? Are you beating the LSUs? Are you beating the, or the teams that you play outside of that? Are you beating a team like Ohio State when you have to go up against them? If you do, I mean, Tennessee's not, but are you beating those teams? And if the answer is no, why is that? And then you have to take a look at that, and then you have to look and say, okay, do we have the right guy leading this team? Is he running the right scheme? Do we have the players that fit this scheme? Is our recruiting not good? Do we need to recruit, guys that are going to be in this scheme, or do we need to change our scheme to fit the type of recruits we're bringing in? Those are all questions. I mean, whenever you're evaluating a team, it's not easy. That's why you look at a lot of teams who they bring in an outside person to take a look at what's going on with their football program.
The advisors they bring in.
A lot more of that is you're going to be seen in the NFL and higher up, but there's people who come in and take a look at this because it's difficult. It's very difficult. It's hard to pinpoint one thing. And a lot of times, they don't want to pinpoint the head coach. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it just is a coaching thing. But a lot of times, things didn't go their way that season. things just didn't go their way that season. But I think right now for Tennessee, if you look at the last couple of seasons, things were going their way. And then all of a sudden, somewhere mid-season, it just took a 180 turn, and you're going the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that right now, I think that you do need to be evaluating the head coach. I think that Butch Jones is on a hot seat in Tennessee because they're out now of the top 25. They're not even there. I think that really this is going to be a tough offseason for Tennessee if things continue like this.
Well, and the one thing I kind of look at is you look at Butch Jones's record overall over his years at Tennessee, 26-20. And, I mean, you can look at it and go, okay, at least it's a positive. But you look at each year, and the year before Butch came in, this was a 5-7 team, 1-7 in the SEC, a laughing stock. He comes in that first year, 5-7 again, 2-6. But I look at their schedule that year. They lost. Here's where their losses: number 2 Oregon on the road, 19 Florida on the road. They lost in overtime by 3 to number 6 Georgia. They did beat number 11 South Carolina, but then they lost to number 1 Alabama, number 9 Missouri, both those on the road, and number 9 Auburn. Those were some tough games. Now, did they lose to Vanderbilt? Yeah. But when you're getting the crap beat out of you every single game by this tough schedule, that Vanderbilt game was just, at the end of the season, didn't have any gas left going through the gauntlet of that SEC. Picks it up the next year, a 7-6 team, 3-5 in the SEC, so not winning there. But you look at the losses, ranked with Oklahoma, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Missouri. Their only non-ranked win, Florida. By that third year, though, this is the year where you want to see a little bit more improvement. You see it. 9-4. This was last season. 9-4, 5-3. They get to a bowl game. You look at their losses. Oklahoma. It was a double overtime game. It was at home. Oklahoma went on to the college football playoff. Now, did they play well in that college football playoff? No. But they went to the college football playoff. Then you got Florida and Arkansas. Okay, unranked SEC teams, you got to beat those. And then they lost to Alabama, but they played them close, 19-14. The thing that makes all of this worse is this season, because what we should have seen and what we have seen up to this point before this season, there has been a progression. You won one more game here. Okay, you jumped up, you made a bowl game, you won 9 games. This season was supposed to be what's that next step? Is it getting to the SEC title game? Is it getting to the college football playoff? And right from the get-go, right from Thursday, September 1st, you started off on a bad note. Yeah, you got the win, but a 20-13 win was not the staple that you wanted to. And they've just kind of been fumbling their way through the season until they get to this stretch of Texas A&M, Alabama, and then South Carolina. It was just like, fuck it. We lost the last 2. We're not going to make the college football playoff. And this team kind of gave up on themselves. And South Carolina coming in, that's a huge, huge staple win for Will Muschamp, a guy that we talked about in the preseason. But this is something where I wouldn't be surprised, Brandon, if in the offseason, Tennessee has a discussion. They go, you know what? There's a guy sitting out there that knows the SEC pretty well. Not just the teams, but the recruiting game. He knows what recruits want for this region of the country. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time this season ends, we're talking by that Kentucky game, Missouri game, we're talking a little, is Butch Jones going to lose his job, and is Tennessee going to go after Les Miles?
You know, I think that everything that we're kind of talking about, it really dates all the way back to that Appalachian State game. Mm-hmm. Things haven't changed. Things have just been kind of, you can kind of hide it. They've been able to hide things well. I mean, how many times when we've interviewed a coach or anything like that, and we've talked about, you played a really good game. And then they go, well, we had some issues. We had some issues, but those can be, hidden well if you're playing well. But And Tennessee did that. Tennessee did that. They had magic. They had some magic on their side. They had some luck on their side. And there's a lot of people saying, golf, I'd rather be lucky than good. That's really true. And that's exactly what was going on for Tennessee. They were better lucky than they were good. And I think that you look at a team that's tied for the SEC lead in turnovers with 20. They rank 9th in third down and 12th in fourth down conversions, 5th most penalties. It's a football team that has a long way to go. And I think that when you look at them being 2-3 in conference play, they're not getting any better there. It's a team with a lot of questions. It's a team with a lot of questions, and I think that these next 4 games for Tennessee, it truly defines them. I think for a while people thought at 5-0, this Tennessee team was okay. This Tennessee team is it's back. We are back. We're going to have national prominence on this Tuesday night. I think people thought on this Tuesday night that they would be one of the teams in talks for a playoff spot. Right now. Well, Tennessee is not even in the top 25.
Well, and especially next Tuesday, everyone was in the preseason expecting by the time we get to next Tuesday, which is going to be the first college football playoff rankings, everyone expected maybe Alabama and Tennessee to be there, especially Tennessee fans. They expected to either be there that first ranking or be 5-6 and be in the running, but at this point probably be in because obviously you would have had to beat Alabama to be in there where we are in the season right now. But this is a team where, and I want to go back to the statement I made just to clarify for Tennessee fans, because I know you guys get hostile. I'm not calling for Butch Jones' head. Let's not get anything twisted. I'm just saying this year there are some coaching candidates that could be available. A Les Miles that knows the area. Another one I look at, a Charlie Strong, could get fired from Tennessee. A guy who coached in Louisville, knows that southern region, that SEC region, although Louisville is not in the SEC, it's still Kentucky, which is that region. Those are 2 coaches that Tennessee could go for. However, if I had to lean on it now, I'm going to go 75% that Butch Jones comes back next season, and next season is his indicator of where we go for the future.
Yeah, I definitely think he comes back next season because a lot of times it's who else are you going to get? Who's going to be better? And, people can throw out Les Miles.
He's the only one that I would throw out right now. But I think that
at the same time, it's how realistic is that? And if you don't get him, who are you going to get? Who are you going to get? And you don't just want to get a name, well, we got, John Doe. No one cares. If you're going to a team like Tennessee, where they're a high profile team, I think that it's a high profile conference. It's a high profile job. I think that you have to bring in a high profile coach then, and that's what Butch Jones is, and I think that he's a good coach. I think things have just really not gone his way the last couple of years, but he's got to figure it out. He's got to start to figure it out, and these last 4 games is going to be perfect for him to try and get this team to figure it out after this 3-game losing streak. If they can end the season with only those 3 losses, you don't look so bad. You go to a nice bowl game, you can still salvage the season. But if you cannot win these next 4 games, if you struggle in these next 4 games and have the problems that you've had in the last 3, it's not going to go too well. And I think that another thing, too, is that one thing that Tennessee fans can come away from this season, if nothing else, you beat Florida for the first time in 10 years.
Well, it's huge. Although it was a close game, but most of your games been close. Before I wrap this up, though, I want to throw out one thing. You remember who saved the Appalachian State game, right? Who won them that game? Do you remember? Who fell on that fumble after Dobbs tried to stretch it over the goal line? Oh, that's right. The same guy who's transferring from your team, Jalen Hurd. So that's your savior in the game that I think you should have lost. Is leaving your team. But this is where you guys let me and Brandon know down below what you guys think. Tennessee fans, I really want to hear from you guys. I want to hear, what do you guys think about Butch Jones? I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. Do you think he should be fired this year? Do you think he gets one more season? Do you think we're kind of pushing a panic button that shouldn't be there? Let us know down below.
And that's one thing that I wanted to say too, is as I know we're moving to the next segment, but sometimes maybe we do, oh gosh, they lost 3 games. He needs to be, and I'm certainly not saying that. I don't think you are either. I think we're just throwing out some ideas.
Just throwing out the discussion.
And do I think that he could start to be on a hot seat in Tennessee? Certainly. I mean, I think Tennessee fans are sick of mediocrity, and that's what you have.
Especially when you see Alabama just reigning over college football.
And it's not just Alabama. It's Alabama. Florida's getting better. You're looking at some of these teams that are getting better around
Auburn.
you, and you're like, we're just kind of wavering right here. Now a team that's kind of struggling worse than Tennessee is Georgia. They got a ways to go.
But they got a first year head coach in Kirby Smart, so maybe gets a little bit of a pass.
True. I won't give him a pass, but I will say true. I think that you take a look at LSU. They've been a team up and down this season, of course. But Auburn, a team that I kind of had counted out for dead because they had been doing, it felt like nothing.
And now they have life.
And flying way under the radar, certainly my radar. And yeah, there is life in the Auburn Tigers. How about that? Gus Malzahn doing a nice job there. And I think that with Tennessee, I won't say that there's a panic, but there's a concern that we can't keep repeating the same story each season.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's the problem that I have and that Butch Jones needs to fix, because whatever it might be, whether it's a scouting and getting the right recruits problem, fix it. If it's you gotta not be embarrassed by Alabama, fix it. You've got to be able to do this. You are the head coach. That is your job. You are supposed to get the players in there to be competitive, especially in an SEC conference. Is every game going to go your way? Certainly it's not. But after certainly back-to-back years of mediocrity, mediocre football, of letdown in the middle of the season, fans, you want it to be fixed. I'm not even a Tennessee guy, and I want that to be fixed if I'm your fan. If Alabama was wavering like that, I'd be pissed as hell and say something has got to change. We can't keep doing this. So I'm not calling for Butch Jones's head. You're not, like I said, you're not either. But there has to be what needs to change then. Is it the players? Is it the scheme? Is it the play calling? Is it talent? What is it? But a team in this conference, a head coach cannot survive if they continue down this path.